So this isn't really a regular video for my channel, and this isn't exactly a topic that I was dying to cover. However, because of some of the things that these big media outlets like CNN, NBC, comicbook.com are pushing, like this agenda that's absolutely fallacious, absolutely ridiculous, and they're pushing it to gain attention, to get clicks. I think that not only is it a terrible representation of cinema and art, and it's just a scare tactic that isn't even news. It's just created to generate clicks and generate controversy, and it's ridiculous. But on a deeper level, it's very insensitive to the real world events. And the thing that I find really shocking is that they are doing exactly what they accuse this movie of doing, which is giving a platform to potential initiators of violence. And frankly, they wanted something to happen. That, I think, is the saddest, most pathetic thing about this whole situation, was that they were not only counting on some big form of violence taking place over the weekend when Joker released. Not only were they counting on it, they wanted it to happen. They wanted to be able to point at Joker and say, look, movies cause violence, video games cause violence. We don't have to take any responsibility. And I don't know if it's because they personally connect too much with the message that we play a role in creating monsters in society, because they do. CNN, anytime there's a big, shooting or act of terrorism, whose face is on CNN for the next 3 weeks? It's whoever initiated it. I think that's very dangerous. It gives these people a platform, and it encourages them, to maybe do some act that they normally wouldn't, because they see, oh, I'll get all this attention, I'll get fame and notoriety. And this has been proven. There are reports, statistics, studies that have proven that by showing, by giving these people a platform, they're more likely to cause violence. Films and video games have very little correlation with acts of violence. This has been a point of discussion for years, and it's nothing new, and movies like Joker are nothing new. I mean, Taxi Driver came out in the 70s, and I'd argue that it's far worse than anything in Joker, not quality-wise, but in terms of, violence, and even to the point of glamorization of what the character's doing, I'd say is much darker in Taxi Driver than it is in Joker. So to give you a full perspective of what happened with Joker in particular, and then I'll sort of branch off into other situations and things like that. Before Joker even released, before these guys even saw it, and I know that they didn't see it because Warner Brothers actually de-invited them to the press screening, which I think was a great move on their part. Before this film even was seen by these people, they were reporting and saying, Joker is a movie that glamorizes violence. It glorifies this wicked clown character, and it's going to cause people to commit violence, and it's going to make people want to commit violence, and it's this really just terrible movie. Don't go see it. There's going to be some big event, and it could cause some big uprising and incel uprising, and please don't see it. It's going to be such a bad movie. And the funny thing is that was not the point of the movie at all. In fact, the violence in the movie is not glorified. It's the opposite. It's very disturbing, very shocking. I was in a very packed theater, and nobody enjoyed the violent scenes, and not because they were poorly made, but because the intention of the movie isn't to make you feel good or happy when a violent act is caused. It's the opposite of glamorization of violence. It actually discourages it. It does not make you want to be in that position. And while you do feel sympathy for the main character, you don't forgive him for what he's doing. You don't feel like the people that, suffer because of him deserve what they get. And if you do, you have a real problem. So when this movie came out, not only does the movie not do what any of these, supposed news sources, I don't consider any of this news, but not only was the message of the film completely opposite to what these bloggers were claiming, there was no problem. There literally was absolutely no act of terrorism, nothing. And so what has the result been? Have these studios come out and said, sometimes we're wrong, sometimes these movies maybe aren't as bad as we think? No, instead they report on every minor thing that happens in these theaters. So, we're getting headlines like, two white men found smoking in a Joker screening. White man arrested at Joker screening for ongoing arrest warrant. So things that have nothing to do with Joker. They're just any incident that they can find at a theater. Like, we're seriously getting to the point where it's going to be like, white man pulled over outside of theater showing Joker. It's absolutely absurd. And I just want to, like for perspective, this happens all the time at movie theaters. I worked at a movie theater for about a year, and the location of the theater was in a very tightly knit religious community. With that said, and I'm going to just be blunt here, every day I went to work, there was a situation similar to that. We had people sneak alcohol into the screenings when they weren't supposed to. We had men dumping their drinks on women and girls for kicking their seats. When 50 Shades came out, and this one's absolutely disgusting, people had to be kicked out for masturbating in the theater. We had people come out of theaters like choking on food, and we had to call ambulances. One time we found like a cartridge and some bullets in a theater after a movie. Like, and this stuff was constant, almost daily, at least weekly. Events like this and far worse happen at theaters all the time. All the time. So the fact is that the media only reports on things that they can try to generate clout with. So, when some old guy in India dies of a heart attack during The Conjuring 2, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, The Conjuring 2 scared a man to death. And that's their headline. Similar with Joker. They're just getting any report that they possibly can that honestly is normal for a movie theater. Like, really, this is normal stuff. And I mean, like really, we're getting headlines like, man behaving strangely at Joker theater. There was a guy sitting next to me who was acting strangely, but it wasn't because he had any ill intention. It was just because he was a weird dude. And I think that that's the problem, is that the reason that people are even reporting this to like CNN is because of that fear-mongering, is because of that clickbait that they're generating. They're creating paranoia. So people are willing to freak out more when they see something that's fairly normal. They're more willing to freak out because of this fear and this artificial controversy that all these news sites are reporting on. And what I think is so pathetic is that they've been trying to report back to the event in Colorado, which is very tragic, and basically in a screening for The Dark Knight Rises in 2012, a gunman went in and caused a shooting and killed multiple people, injured multiple people, and it was absolutely horrific. And it's just the act itself is disgusting, but the other horrible, absolutely just ridiculous thing about that whole situation was that media came out and reported that the man was dressed as Joker, referred to himself as Joker, blamed the whole act on Joker, and then therefore they pointed the blame on movies, on Batman movies and video games, and said they caused this. Now, the reason that this is so obscene for these news articles to be doing, and so insensitive to the people actually involved, is that this man was not dressed like Joker. He had his hair dyed red. I'm actually going to include a clip of Todd Phillips talking about it a little bit, and I have a quick clip of Joaquin Phoenix as well, discussing just kind of the controversy so that you can have the filmmaker's perspective on this at the end of the video. But the guy had like dyed red hair, and I've done some research on this guy as well, and never did he claim to be Joker. He actually, for years, decades it sounds like, had been very mentally disturbed, had told girlfriends and family members and friends that he wanted to hurt people, that he wanted to kill people, that he was insane, and nobody did anything about it. That's the very bizarre thing. And so who do we really blame here? Chris Nolan for making a movie about good triumphing over evil? Or a guy who was totally insane and the people who did nothing to stop him, even though he was literally telling them that he was going to do this? I think that is what makes this whole situation so weird. And again, the fact that they're reporting on, like, oh, it's the movies, and they don't, CNN will never take responsibility for inspiring these people by giving them a platform. But that's the whole point of the Joker film, and maybe that's why they are so against it. The whole point of the Joker film is not only, how does somebody snap, how does someone get to that point, but also how do we play a part in creating these monsters? And maybe that's a message that CNN feels too guilty about and they just can't face. And so then not only are they reporting on every minor thing, like 2 men found smoking in Joker screening, but also, like, all the reviews from these same news sources that I've seen for Joker are like, Joker is too boring and uninteresting to talk about. So they were wrong about the movie. They were wrong about the outcome of the film. And so now they're just acting like it's a worthless movie. Which, if you hear actual critics talking about it, if you hear what the DC fans are saying about it, what fans of cinema are saying about it, that's not the case. In fact, many people are saying that it's one of the best films made in years. And even if you don't like the movie, you kind of have to at least appreciate the quality of the film, the filmmaking behind it, at least in my opinion. And again, it's not a movie that glamorizes or glorifies violence in any way. The violence in this film is not fun to watch. It's very disturbing, and it's not shown gratuitously. It's shown to illustrate the descent into madness. And I actually felt that it was displayed in a way that alienates you from empathizing with Arthur Fleck, Joaquin Phoenix's character in the film. Now, another thing, and this is something that Todd Phillips talks about, he talks about John Wick, and I'll add Deadpool to that as well. He says it's interesting that there's this whole thing like, oh no, it's about a white man just killing people. He brings up the point that it's interesting that this movie is being held to that standard when people go to see John Wick or Deadpool, which is about a white man going and shooting like 300 people, and everyone is laughing, and the character is laughing, and those films do glamorize the violence, at least Deadpool. And you could argue the same with John Wick. And the fact is that you can arguably state that those films do glorify the violence and make it look fun and exciting, and it's very extreme and gory, but it's portrayed as fun and funny. And I will also add that while it wasn't nearly this big of a controversy, when the It movies came out, It Chapter 2 just came out like last month, but more so the first one, because that one had a little bit more hype around it. It wasn't like bigger news sources, I don't think, but I remember there were tons of hot takes from bloggers like, It is too disturbing, you shouldn't watch It, it's just a terrible, violent movie. These same bloggers are huge fans of slashers like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. They're okay with like these slasher, gory movies that are fun and more enjoyable, where you enjoy watching the kills. But as soon as we're introduced to a movie that not only has less violence and gore, but it's portrayed in a way that makes it unappealing to watch, and the movie isn't about the kills, it's about, a group of kids bonding together to fight the evil and to overcome their fears, and it's like this really positive message, and the violence is shown as something that is dark and unappealing. Suddenly we're glorifying the violence, and it's unacceptable to watch, and it's just this terrible violent movie. Oh my gosh, I can't handle it. And it's just too hard to watch and too disturbing. And I wonder, to some degree, like that's where we've just gotten as for blockbusters. For blockbuster summer films, like, it's so black and white. The bad guys are like obviously bad. The violence is portrayed as fun. And for some reason we're all okay with that. As soon as a film isn't a feel-good movie, makes you feel kind of disturbed and unsettled, and it's this very gray, it's not black and white, it's this very gray film that has a lot of moral questions and ambiguity and really makes you think, and it's thought-provoking and a character study, suddenly it's not okay. And I just think that it's food for thought. Again, I'll have videos of Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips at the very end explaining their thoughts on some of this controversy. But in the end, I think that it's just so ridiculous that this is even a controversy, because it's not. It's fear-mongering, it's fear tactics to get clicks and to get hype, and I think, honestly, that these news outlets that are doing this are absolutely disgusting, unjustified for doing it. It's very insensitive to people who have had situations such as this, and they're blowing things out of proportion. So I hope that this video gave you a little bit more perspective on some of these situations, some of the things that happen at movie theaters on a regular basis that are being blown out of proportion. And I just think it's funny that these, that these news articles and these news outlets are essentially doing what the Joker does. It's except they're taking all it takes is one bad day and changing it to all it takes is one bad movie or one bad video game. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Because of the serious nature of this video, please stay sensitive. Please don't joke about real-world tragedies. If you do, I will remove your comment. And thanks you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. And again, I'll have some of those interview clips at the end just for reference. Some of the information that I got for this video is from those. But even more so, I've done some research on my own, and it's from my own experiences of working in a theater and knowing people who work at the same theater still. But anyways, again, thanks you guys so much for watching, and let me know what you think about the controversy. Do you think there's justification? Because, again, there are movies where I do think it is justified to some degree, but I don't think Joker is one of them. And I think it's again, just very disgusting of these news outlets to be doing this. So thanks again. We'll see you guys in the next one.
They should wait to see the movie, because I don't know that we glorify anything. I think at the end of the movie, I mean, we are ultimately making an origin story of a villain. He has to be bad, right? It's not, but I think if you're seeing it as glorifying him, you might be looking at it wrong. And I think really what the movie is about is a little bit about empathy and the lack thereof in society. And if you keep that going, you get the villain you deserve. That's sort of what it's about.
Do you understand at least why people might be a little scared going into it?
I mean, I think that, Aurora is obviously a horrible, horrible situation, but even that is not something you blame on the movie. And quite frankly, if you do your own research about Aurora, that gentleman wasn't even going in as Joker. That was misreported. His hair was dyed red. He was having obviously a mental breakdown, and there's something horrifying about it, but it wasn't related to it outside of the fact that it happened at a movie theater. But this is not the thing that the movie is trying to represent. This is not the movie still takes place in a fictional world. It can have real world implications, opinions, but it's a fictional character in a fictional world that's been around for 80 years. The one that bugs me more is a toxic white male thing when you go, oh, I just saw John Wick 3. He's a white male. He kills 300 people, and everybody's laughing and hooting and hollering. Why does this movie get held to different standards?
I think it's really good when movies make us uncomfortable or challenge us or make us think differently. So I think I'm pleased about that part. That's how I felt making it. I think that's why I wanted to make the movie, right? Because it wasn't easy for me. I felt such a wide array of feelings towards Arthur Joker in preparing for the role, and the people that I studied for the character.